All right, it's time for some boxing talk as a very intriguing fight is coming up this week. Gervonta Tank Davis, he's back in the ring against Frank Martin. So let's preview this fight. And also, there's another intriguing matchup on the same card. We're going to do that with boxing play-by-play voice Curran Bhatia, who joins me in studio right now. Here he is. Curran, what's going on?
Dexter, always good to chat with you. Love chatting boxing with you. We got some good fights on tap, as always, so I'm pumped to talk about this one.
Always pumped to talk some boxing with you, and we got a good one. Curran knows about this, being the boxing aficionado that he is. And Curran, we got to talk about Gervonta Tank Davis. Yes. He's been a dominant force in boxing, as you know. What are the key factors in this fight that give him an edge against Frank Martin? What do you like about Tank going up in this fight?
Gervonta Tank Davis, he's a star in this sport, one of the pound-for-pound top fighters. He's a champion, and he's got it all. He's got speed, he's got power. He's had massive success in the sport of boxing, advantages, tools. Now, the one thing he's not going to have going into this fight with Frank Martin is the size, right? Martin is going to be the taller fighter and is going to have a little bit more reach. But that is usually the makeup for Tank opponents, right? They usually have the size advantage. Tank is going to have all the other advantages, speed, power. Tank has won 29 times as a professional, 27 of those by knockout. So 93% of the time, Tank Davis is going to knock you out. And he's had some of the best highlight reel knockouts that we've seen in recent memory. He had a great 2023. 2 wins, both by knockout, including over highly touted Ryan Garcia. He has been absolutely electric. He's a star in the sport, an attraction. He's someone that you need to tune in to watch, and we're seeing him in action this weekend.
You talk about Tank being a star and with the knockout power and people needing to watch him, and you definitely saw that even the fight you just alluded to with Ryan Garcia. But Frank Martin, he's also seen by folks in the sport as a rising star, Curran. What does he need to do in order to pull off what would be an upset of a fighter of Davis's caliber? What does he need to do here?
Frank Martin, he's a young fighter. He's undefeated. He's also got power, 18-0, 12 knockouts. Now, what does he have to do to beat Tank Davis, or at least have a good showing? Well, one, he's got to work the size advantage, right? That's one of the things he has as an advantage. Also, Frank Martin is a southpaw, so is Tank Davis, but it's rare to fight southpaw, right? It's a southpaw versus southpaw matchup. So maybe Frank Martin can try to maybe use that as an advantage. Maybe it's a different look that Tank hasn't seen enough of the time, but that's going to be something that both men are going to be contending with in terms of facing a southpaw. At the same time, Frank Martin has faced recently, his last 2 fights, 2 undefeated opponents. He dropped them both. So he's also coming into this fight with a lot of confidence. But at the end of the day, he's taking on Tank Davis, who is an electric talent, who is the champion. Frank Martin is the challenger. So like I said, I think Frank Martin's best chance is to maybe try to use the length, not get caught by a big shot from Tank. And we're going to learn a lot about Frank Martin in this fight. We're going to learn what he's made of in this contest. This is a great fight for both guys. And this is something we want to see. 2 young fighters in their prime, undefeated, putting it all on the line for a title belt. I mean, this fight's got it all.
This is a fight that has it all. You and I have talked a lot about this, even off camera, about boxing, and how sometimes we, as the viewers and the media, we don't get to see the fight between the young fighters that we would like to see. 2 guys rising in the sport, and I think this is really good for us to see. But when you look at that, right, in terms of 2 guys here, how significant is this fight for the lightweight division, and what could a win mean for the careers of both Tank Davis and Frank Martin?
This fight is very significant for both Tank Davis and Frank Martin, and there's going to be huge implications either way. So if Tank Davis can get by Frank Martin, that opens him up to the possibility of many marquee matchups that are out there. There's so many names. The lightweight division is absolutely red hot. And so Tank Davis knows what's out there if he can get past Frank Martin. But you don't want to look past a dangerous opponent who's undefeated in his prime. Now, for Frank Martin, this would be career defining if he could somehow beat Tank Davis. Tank Davis is a pound for pound top fighter. He's the champion in this division. He holds one of the title belts. And Frank Davis would be the ultimate spoiler here, upsetting the apple cart. He would be changing the entire trajectory of his career, Frank Martin would, if he could get past Tank Davis. So it's huge implications for both men. And this is a fight that both men, it's a possibility that it's the kind of fight where even if you lose this fight, your stock could still go up. But certainly if Frank Martin can somehow find a way to play spoiler, I mean, this would change everything for him.
It would change the game for him indeed. And we've talked about what both of these fighters can do. We've talked about the implications of the fight, Curran.
Yeah.
But here we go. What's your prediction for this fight? Who comes out on top? Are you rolling with Tank Davis or are you going with Frank Martin?
I'm going to be picking Gervonta Tank Davis to beat Frank Martin. I think he's going to find a way to probably get the spectacular knockout. That's usually what he does. Tank Davis is a favorite in this fight, and that is for good reason. The power edge will have to go to Tank Davis, right? Tank Davis. Tank has faced a higher level of competition up to this point. He's knocked more people out up to this point. He's had more fights as a professional. Now, the one advantage we talked about was Frank Martin will have the size advantage, but Tank is used to that. He's used to being the smaller guy. So I think he's very comfortable with that. He's able to find his range. He's still able to get spectacular knockouts. If you have any questions about Tank Davis, go to YouTube and look at some of these highlights. He's knocked people into another dimension. He's been absolutely electric. So this is one of the best fighters of this era. Tank Davis is, and so I expect to see Tank Davis get the win.
All right, going with the Tank Davis win here. Before we get out of here, I got to ask you about another fight that's on this card because I thought it was really important to talk about. David Benavidez.
Yeah.
He's going to be fighting Alexander Gvozdyk. Who do you like in this fight? And how important is it for Benavidez to win? Because he's been a guy that's talked so openly about wanting to fight Canelo Alvarez. I think that's a matchup you and I both would like to see in terms of matchups that we'd like to see. How important is it for Benavidez to get the job done here? You talked about looking ahead. He's got to get the job done here on Saturday night, right?
It's critically important for David Benavidez to get the job done against Alexander Gvozdyk. Now, that's not going to be easy because Gvozdyk is a great fighter in his own right. But David Benavidez is a young talent. He's only 27 years old. He's undefeated. He's got 28 wins, 24 by knockout. So he's an absolutely electric talent. He's a come-forward fighter, a young, hungry fighter. And we know he has Canelo Alvarez in his sights. But we mentioned Alexander Gvozdyk. So Gvozdyk's also a very tough guy. His nickname is actually the Nail. He's 20-1, only one loss, and that was to Arthur Beterbiev, who's one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in this sport. So no shame in losing that fight. Also, Gvozdyk has knocked people out. He's actually ended careers, so that's how dangerous this guy is. But at the end of the day, I see David Benavidez coming out on top because he's been absolutely electric, and he knows that the Canelo Alvarez fight is possible after this. That would be an amazing matchup. And I think David Benavidez's mindset is be so good they can't ignore you, right? I'm just going to keep knocking these fighters out. He's already taken on fighters that a lot of people avoided. He took out Demetrius Andrade. He beat Caleb Plant. David Benavidez has been a special talent up to this point, and if he gets an opportunity to take on Canelo, that would really be the cherry on top for him. Now, let me just say one huge positive thing I see for David Benavidez. His mindset about the Canelo Alvarez fight, if it does happen, isn't, oh, that's my mountaintop. He says that's just the beginning, right? He wants to use that as the launching pad for his career. So I think his mindset is in the right place. He's got youth. He's got size. He's a hungry fighter. So David Benavidez has been electric so far in the boxing ring, and I expect to see that continue. All
right, should be a good fight for Benavidez there on Saturday night, along with the matchup between Tank Davis and Frank Martin going down this Saturday. Good boxing. Always good boxing to talk about with you, Curran Bhatia. Thank you for stopping by and talking about this fight with me. Appreciate it.
Dexter, thank you so much. The one thing I'll say, if you tune into these fights, see Tank Davis, see David Benavidez, don't blink because we got some big knockout punchers in action.
A lot of power. Somebody might get hit and drop to the canvas, which is what the people want to see. We hope this is a good one. Thanks, Curran. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.